One of the most damaging impacts that narcissistic abuse has on you is where it takes away your ability to trust your own perception, where you don't know whether or not what you're looking at is real or if it's going to remain real. Because everything that you experienced in that hellish cycle, it breaks your reality. You experience what I've come to call negative paradigm shift fatigue. And a negative paradigm shift is where what you thought was real, what you thought was solid and that you could rely on, it changes and it shifts into something negative. It's a part of the betrayal trauma. It's a part of your consciousness expanding where you realize what you thought you knew is not what's actually true. If you think back to your earliest memories, you've experienced this in different degrees and varying degrees. One of the first ones that you can experience is when you realize your parents aren't superheroes, that they are not gods, that they have their own flaws, problems, and imperfections. And when you see that, there's a certain pain associated with that growth, with that expanding knowledge. The world you thought you knew, the world, the way you thought it was, is not what it actually is. And it's not that the world itself has changed, but that your perception has expanded. The second experience you might have had like this is with Santa Claus. You know, a lot of us believe that Santa Claus was real and Christmas was a very magical time. And there's nothing quite like Christmas when you believe in Santa Claus. But then when your knowledge expands, you have that negative paradigm shift. And you're all of a sudden in this reality where there's no Santa Claus. And it's painful, but it's also something that expands your mind. You may have had that experience when you had your first teenage love and it felt so intense and so real. And you thought that you were going to be with that person forever. And then you grow, you mature, you have other experiences, and you realize that their values don't line up with your values. And there's another painful shift. It's the growing pain of an expanding consciousness. And all of those experiences that you've had only pale in comparison to the paradigm shift that breaks your reality when you go through narcissistic abuse, when you realize that this person you invested in, this person you loved, this person you made sacrifices for is someone other than who you believed them to be. When you discover the monster behind the mask, the cruelty that was concealed within the love, and you understand that your world will never be the same. The person you thought they were changes. The person you thought you were changes. And the reality, the story, the narrative that you believed you were living in crumbles and shatters right before your eyes. And it's that process of going through these growing pains, going through these negative paradigm shifting experiences that causes you to lose faith and confidence in your ability to perceive the reality that's in front of you accurately. And it's the awareness, it's being cognizant of the fact that what you're looking at right now can change and transmogrify into something entirely different with time. That knowledge does something to you. It gives you a certain apprehension, a certain anxiety, a certain unwillingness to engage on a certain level. And so if you're stuck, you might be thinking, okay, I don't want to, start dating because this person might turn out to be a narcissist. I don't want to join this group because those people might turn out to be wolves in sheep's clothing. I don't want to. And you have all of these limitations, these restrictions, these prohibitions that you place on yourself to try to avoid the pain. And you think it's the safe way. You think it's the safest route because of all of the experiences that you've been through that have proven not to be what you were certain they were. And so you sort of create the shell around yourself. It becomes your paradise, but it also becomes your prison because it prohibits you from moving forward and growing and expanding with the new knowledge that you have. The experience of these paradigm shifts is analogous to, and I'm sure you've seen this, where you might see a picture of something and it zooms out, and then you realize that it wasn't what you thought you were looking at, but there's more to it, and it changes the picture. What may have appeared to be a black hole, when the camera zooms out, you can see that it's the inner part of the eye, and then it zooms out and you can see the white of the eye, and it zooms out and you can see a face, and it zooms out and you can see a sea of faces in a city. And the more it zooms out, the more the picture changes. And that's what the paradigm shifting experience is like. The more your consciousness expands, the more you see, and the more it changes what you thought you were looking at initially. And so the thing that you crave when you're in that place where you don't want to move forward because you want to just stay in your shell because of the uncertainty of what you're looking at, your inability to trust your perception, the anxiety that comes as a result of your knowledge of the impermanence of all things. Everything is always shifting and changing. And because you've been through such a hellish experience with that, you understand the pain that can come as a result of the things that shift, the things that you thought were certain that turned out not to be certain. And the certainty that you crave makes you want to stay in that little hole of isolation, in that place of solitude where you don't have to extend yourself and you don't have to question whether or not what you're looking at will always be what it is, because you don't want to expose yourself to the harm that comes when the sands shift. But the thing that you want to do, you want to transition your mindset. The goal is not to have absolute certainty that what you're looking at is going to remain the same. The mindset you want to have is faith in yourself, in your resilience, in the new wisdom, the new insight that you've gained as a result of everything that you've experienced, that those things will carry you through no matter what the image changes to. So that faith in the narrative of your life, in the narrative of your story, that everything that you've been through up to this point is working toward a happily ever after, that your story will end in a way that's victorious and in alignment with your vision. When you can hold that image, that vision in your mind, then that makes everything that you go through in the meantime, it gives a different meaning to it. It's not a question of, will this image that I perceive to be this way remain constant? But it's shifting to the faith that even when the image changes, I'll be able to navigate it, adapt to it, and have the strength, wisdom, and insight to overcome any challenges that come and to grow as a result of any experience that I have. And that's the mindset when you have that faith that will allow you to move forward beyond the bubble that you create as a result of fearing the shifting sand.